Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky just returned from the United States of America, having had what he called a very productive week.
Продуктивний був тиждень. Дуже. Ми маємо багато хороших оборонних та інших рішень. Оборонний пакет від Сполучених Штатів.
At the same time, summer is ending in Ukraine. Temperatures are set to drop, and with that comes the rain. That means the window before what is known as bezdorija, or roadlessness, is closing. So, welcome to Talking Tactics, where this week it's about Zelensky's visit to the US and the latest developments concerning military aid, equipment, and the front line. While on his trip, Zelensky secured a military aid package worth $325 million. It contains additional ammunition for high-mobility artillery rocket systems, or HIMARS, Avenger air defense systems, 50 caliber machine guns to counter Russian UAVs, 155mm artillery rounds, including cluster munition used, for example, by the Paladin that were also delivered to Ukraine, tube-launched, optically tracked, wire-guided missiles, or TOW, Javelin and 84 anti-armor systems, over 300 million rounds of small arms ammunition, 59 light tactical vehicles, and more. Zelensky also announced the, quote,
Є історичне рішення Америки про спільне виробництво зброї та оборонні системи, зокрема і ППО, це те, що було абсолютно фантастикою ще нещодавно, але стане реальністю.
Perhaps the most important news of the week was this. Upon his return, Zelensky congratulated the recently appointed defense minister Rustem Umerov, by the way the first Muslim and Crimean Tatar minister ever in Ukraine, for announcing the arrival of the first USmade M1A1 Abrams main battle tanks. Now, this might cause you to raise your eyebrows. Weren't those tanks promised in January? Aren't already German Leopards and British Challengers fighting on the battlefield? Yes and yes. But there are a couple of good reasons for this delay. Number one, the M1A1s, which as you can guess by the name are older than the more modern M1A2s, were refurbished and upgraded so that the tanks received by Ukraine will, this is according to General Pat Ryder, the Department of Defense press secretary, have a very similar capability to the superior M1A2s, including advanced armor and weapon systems like a mounted .50 caliber heavy machine gun. The second reason is that at the beginning of September, Ukraine had requested the Pentagon to extend the training of Ukrainian personnel on the Abrams to ensure their proper abilities in handling the tank before sending the men into battle. Anyway, 31 US M1A1 Abrams battle tanks will soon be visible on the battlefield. 31 is the size of a typical Ukrainian tank battalion, by the way. Let's take a closer look at the tank. The basic idea for the Abrams emerged from a joint project with Germany. Together, the two countries wanted to develop the main battle tank 70. As you know, that never happened and the project died. And while Germany went on to revive the idea some years later and develop the Leopard, the project was revived stateside when the US sought to replace its aging M60 Patton tanks in the late 70s. In 1980, the US Army selected Chrysler Defense, later known as General Dynamics Land Systems, to develop the prototype. This marked the beginning of a tank that would redefine armored warfare. The M1A1 Abrams entered service in the United States Army in 1985. Since then, it has undergone several upgrades and improvements to maintain its superiority on the modern battlefield. Main characteristics: firepower. The M1A1 is equipped with a 120mm smoothbore cannon, capable of firing a variety of rounds, including depleted uranium ammunition that's heading to Ukraine. We made a video on why this kind of ammunition is so controversial but also important. You can check that out. Engine. The tank is powered by a Honeywell AGT 1500 gas turbine engine, producing around 1,500 horsepower. This engine allows the M1A1 to achieve impressive speeds, around 72 km/h max depending on the surface and terrain, and maneuverability despite its considerable weight. A gas turbine engine is multi-fuel, meaning it can run on almost anything that burns, diesel, kerosene, or petrol, but it does differ quite a bit from a standard diesel engine used in most tanks. That was a point of concern for many, but up until now, Ukrainians haven't had that much of a problem adapting to different weapon systems. Also, the Soviet T-80 has a gas turbine engine, so it's not something the tank mechanics here are totally unfamiliar with. Protection. The tank's composite armor, including depleted uranium layers, provides unmatched protection against a wide range of threats, including armor-piercing rounds. It also features NBC, so nuclear, biological, or chemical protection systems for crew safety. Mobility. The Abrams is extremely mobile thanks to its advanced suspension system and powerful engine. Its operational range on a single tank of fuel is approximately 450 kilometers, but of course that varies depending on what type of ground you're driving on. Combat history. The The Abrams made its combat debut in Operation Desert Storm, also known as the Gulf War. It played a pivotal role in the liberation of Kuwait from Iraqi forces. The Abrams was again deployed during the invasion of Iraq in 2003. It's the first time it was battle-tested so intensely in an urban environment, not only against the Iraqi army, but also against fighters of the rising insurgency, for example in battles against the pro-Iranian Jaish al-Mahdi. It also saw some action in Afghanistan and is deployed by several other nations around the globe, like Saudi Arabia. Now, what change could or can the tank bring on the battlefield in Ukraine? According to the Institute for the Study of War and other sources, it is confirmed that Ukrainian troops have breached Russian defense positions west of Verbove. And by breach, we mean that they have managed to breach the feared anti-tank ditches west of the little town and brought their armored vehicles into battle for the lines behind. Now, this doesn't mean that the road to Crimea is open and it's an easy ride from here. To be honest, it's far from that. But it does mean Ukraine is one significant step closer to reaching Tokmak, which is a heavily fortified and strategically important town. Now, the battle for the city will be a critical one, and the Abrams, whose gas turbine engine is known to be pretty quiet for a tank, if you didn't know, it has been nicknamed Whispering Death, could pose an advantage when battling it out in an urban environment. Still, we mustn't forget that we're talking about 31 tanks, not 3,100, and that no tank, no matter how good, is a magic weapon. The fight ahead is still long and tough. Anyway, thanks for watching Talking Tactics. That's it for this week. Please hit like and subscribe. You can also follow our channel on Telegram to always get the latest news from Ukraine.